Imagine a black box, not on an airplane, but in the back of a police van, a silent witness collecting data that would one day speak for a man who couldn't. This is the story of Clarence C.J. Jones, a 55-year-old grandfather and long-haul trucker, and how a simple drive to the precinct became a high-tech battle for justice. Our story begins on a cold, rainy night. CJ is arrested. The reason? A simple mix-up, a mistaken warrant from a traffic camera. He's polite, cooperative, a man with nothing to hide. He calmly informs the arresting officer, David Vance, about his heart condition and arrhythmia he manages daily. He even shows Vance his medical alert bracelet. "I have a heart condition," he says. "Can you please make sure I'm seat-belted in the back?" Officer Vance, known among his colleagues as the Rough Rider, just scoffs. "If you didn't want a rough ride, you shouldn't have been on our paperwork." With that, CJ is placed in the back of the transport van, his hands cuffed behind him, but with no seatbelt. He's just a loose object on a narrow metal bench. What should have been a standard 20-minute drive to the station turned into a calculated nightmare. Officer Vance drove with deliberate aggression. He'd slam on the gas, then violently hit the brakes. He'd take turns at speeds that threw CJ across the metal compartment like a goal. With each jolt, CJ's body was slammed against the unforgiving walls and floor of the van. During one particularly sharp, high-speed turn, the force was so great that it threw him against a metal bench support, a sickening crunch echoing in the small space. When the van finally arrived at the precinct, CJ was barely conscious. His face was pale, his breathing was shallow and ragged. Paramedics were called immediately. At the hospital, doctors discovered the terrifying extent of his injuries: multiple fractured ribs and, far more critically, a severe cardiac event. The physical trauma and extreme stress of the ride had nearly killed him. Meanwhile, Officer Vance filed his report. His version of the story: CJ had been uncontrollably flailing and thrashing in the back of the van, causing his own injuries. Vance's partner backed up the story. It was a classic case of two officers' words against a civilian's. For CJ's family and their newly hired attorney, the case looked hopeless. How could they prove what happened inside that metal box? This is where the story takes a turn, moving from a dark alley of injustice into the bright light of data. The attorney had a groundbreaking idea, one that ventured into a new frontier of police accountability law. They wouldn't just question the officers. They would question the van itself. They subpoenaed the van's telematics its internal black box. This data, normally used by the Department for Fleet Maintenance, tracks everything: speed, location, and, most importantly, sudden G-force events. These spikes in data are triggered by things like hard braking, sharp turns, or rapid acceleration. The results were shocking. For that 20-minute ride, the report showed 14 separate G-force events that exceeded the department's own safety threshold for transporting individuals. 14. For a standard drive across town, that number was impossible. It wasn't just aggressive driving, it was evidence of a weaponized vehicle. But the data told an even more detailed story. The attorney brought in a biomechanics expert. This expert took the timestamps of the most violent G-force spikes from the telematics report and cross-referenced them with the precise location of CJ's injuries. The analysis was conclusive. The fractured ribs and bruised hip aligned perfectly with the data showing extreme lateral acceleration. The forces were consistent with CJ's body being slammed sideways against fixed points inside the van, not with him thrashing on his own. The data proved the injuries were inflicted upon him. The final piece of the puzzle came from the van's audio recorder. The sound was muffled, but the telematics data gave them a powerful tool. The legal team could now isolate the exact moment of the most severe G-force spike. They knew precisely when the worst impact occurred. When they enhanced the audio from that exact second, what they heard was chilling. It wasn't CJ's voice. It was Officer Vance making a cold, mocking comment about slow learners right before the data showed the van lurching violently. The telematics data became the undeniable, objective witness that couldn't be intimidated or coerced. It systematically dismantled Officer Vance's fabricated report. The rough ride was exposed for what it was, a calculated, malicious act of violence. Faced with irrefutable digital evidence, the system was forced to act. The district attorney pressed charges against Vance for assault under color of law. He was found guilty of a felony, stripped of his badge, and sentenced to prison. His partner, who had lied to corroborate the story, was disciplined and suspended. CJ received a historic civil settlement, but the victory went far beyond money. The case forced the city to implement a new policy, real-time telemetry monitoring in all transport vehicles. Now, any excessive G-force event automatically flags an alert for immediate internal review. The practice of rough riding, once a hidden secret, was now under constant digital surveillance. It was dismantled by hard data and accountability. CJ recovered from his injuries. Today, he works with civil rights groups, teaching a new generation of lawyers how to use the police department's own data against them. He's turning the tools of the system into instruments of justice, ensuring that the silent black box in the back of every police van now has a voice, speaking for those who can't. This case wasn't just about one man's fight. It was about the power of data to hold power accountable. It proves that in the digital age, truth can be found in the most unexpected of places, even in the cold, hard numbers of a G-force report. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as compelling as we did, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more stories where technology uncovers the truth. We'll see you next time.